Hey everyone, what is up? And welcome back to another episode of the Lifestyle Lifter Show. I hope everyone is having a fantastic week. And today I want to talk about nutrition and specifically just some of the nutritional habits, some of the nutritional, I don't like using the word hacks, but just some habits that I've built and implemented over the last couple of weeks, which have helped me lose a lot of weight, a lot of stubborn fat and get stage lean for the very first time in my life. I am seeing veins in places I've never seen them before. I am seeing my love handles pretty much disappear. I am seeing definition of my lower abs, my biceps, my chest, everywhere really. So I want to share just some of the strategies that have really helped me get to that new level of leanness, which I never thought was within me. And hopefully you can do the same. Now, what I will say is like, look, your goal doesn't have to be to get to stage lean bodybuilding. Don't trust me on this. You don't always feel the best, even if you look the best. So I'm actually after this dieting phase, I will be reverse dieting out of it, building up my calories again because it's just not healthy to stay at this level of body fat long term. I'm not sure what my body fat levels are. I would estimate probably in that, they're definitely single digits anyways. I'm not sure exactly. I probably won't be getting a DEXA scan. But with all of that being said, I know for the majority of our listeners out here, you want to feel a bit more comfortable in your clothes. You want to lose a bit of stubborn fat. So I wanted to talk through some strategies which have helped me do this. Now, number one, and I did a full podcast on this a few weeks ago, and that is meal prepping. So I was recently even on a call with a girl, and she was looking to lose some stubborn fat, get rid of some of the love handles. She would have classified herself as skinny fat. And a line that really resonated with me, what she said was, when I'm tired, I always go for the sugar. And that was just her default, that whenever she got home from work and there was nothing there ready to eat, she would have just gone for the sugar. The biscuits, I think crisp was her biggest weakness. Some of the snacks in between there just to tie her over until she actually had a proper meal. Now, if you're the same or if you have your triggers, focus less time on the problem, which is I'm when I'm tired, I go for the sugar, and more time on the solution. How can you actually fix this problem? So the first thing that I would say there is don't allow yourself or don't wait until you get hungry before you eat. Secondly, when you are hungry, the last thing you want to be doing is having to cook. We've all been there where you're starving and you have to cook a full meal. It might take 40, 45 minutes, but in the meantime, while the meal is cooking, you're snacking on even quote unquote healthy food. You might have a banana, you might have some nuts, you might have a protein bar, but those snacks can up to 300, 400 calories there quite easily. So I always recommend this with my clients. I do something called a Sunday sermon where basically we go through a checklist to really nail the list. And it all starts out with the food shop. It starts out with the food prep, and then from there, the food planning and the meal prepping. Meal prepping doesn't mean you have to do it for a full week. Meal prep can simply be that you use tomorrow's lunch or today's dinner for tomorrow's lunch. It could mean that you cook all your lunches for work and then you have breakfast, you make that as normal, you make a dinner as normal. It could potentially mean for me now at the moment, because I don't enjoy a whole lot of time cooking. I like to batch do things, batch create things, and be as efficient with my time as possible. I just pick one day a week, which was Friday this week, and meal prep my pretty much a full week's worth of meals. I explained previously before my process. I'm a pretty basic cook, but meal prep 101 simplified. Choose your protein. So for me, this is turkey mince. For you, it could be chicken. It could be, I also use lean steak mince. It could be pick any meat, any fish there at all, or tofu if you're a vegan. That's number one. Pick your protein. Number two, always try to include veggies. I'm not someone who enjoys spending a lot of time chopping onions because number one, they make me cry, and number two, it takes time, or peppers or mushrooms. So I just get frozen veggies, saves me time. If you're different, go for it. One of my clients, John, he loves to listen to a podcast, and it's almost therapy for him doing meal prep. Okay, he puts on a podcast, puts on a bit of music, and he makes a bit of fun out of it. You do you. Okay, protein and fiber will be the two key. And then, depending on your activity levels, You might include some carbohydrates there. So you might include some rice, boiled potatoes be my favorite too, potentially some pasta. You decide. But meal prepping has been such a game changer for me because look, when you're lifting, when you get home from the gym, when you have a long day at work, it does take its toll on you. And it's just nice having something there ready to go that you can just take out, heat up, and it's all there for you. So that has been the first thing that's been an absolute game changer for me. And if you're someone who hasn't tried meal prepping, I would consider just giving it a go. And as I said, it doesn't mean it has to be for a full week. It could literally be a plan that on a Sunday evening, you just pick out what you're going to have for your breakfast, for your lunch, and for your dinner. Okay. If anyone heard Sarah Butler there, best-selling cookbook author, that is what she does, and success does leave clues that she just plans out her meals. First of all, I'm going to have this for dinner on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Based off this, I need to do my food shop. So, what ingredients do I need to get for the meal prep? And then you just got to decide if you're going to prep for the week, if you're going to prep for the day. But I would highly recommend. When I worked as a teacher, I did this all the time. I did this. I prepped all of my lunches, and I also would have prepped some overnight oats there for a my small lunch. And the great thing about prepping overnight oats is it literally takes 5 minutes. Like when people say they don't have time, I'm like, have you not tried my overnight oats or any overnight oats recipes or even just something like protein yogurt, like a non-fat protein yogurt, scoop of protein, 50 grams of protein there. You do have time. Maybe you just don't have the education as to how to do it. But with overnight oats, there's something I currently do not prep because I like to have warm meals as opposed to cold meals. But if you're eating on the go there, you could easily prep five of those for the week in one sitting. All it simply involves is you get 5 lunch boxes or 5 containers, you put in your oats, you put in some maybe almond milk, which I would recommend, then choose your protein. For the protein for the overnight oats, if you are going for protein powder, I put in a scoop of that and then mix it up, stir it up with some almond milk so it doesn't get all kind of soggy. Alternatively, you could also just put in some Greek yogurt there, and that could be a protein source. Or what I like to do is I actually like to use both. But I would have always put in the oats for the carbohydrates. For my protein, it would have been protein powder plus some Greek yogurt plus some almond milk, so that when I stir it up, it's got a lovely thick texture. Here's the key with overnight oats: do not put the fruit in the night before or the for the full week because nobody wants a soggy banana or soggy blueberries after 3 days of meal prep. So you only put the fruit in the morning that you're going to have it, and that way it will stay nice and fresh. Then optional ingredients could be things like nuts, chia seeds, just be careful in the portion sizes. But meal prepping and just really planning your meals. Like, God, if you cannot spend 5 minutes on a Sunday or on a Wednesday or whatever day a week to just decide what you're going to eat the next day, losing body fat and complaining about stubborn fat, it obviously is not a big enough priority for you to solve because that's all it literally comes down to. Having a bit of a plan in place and deciding in advance. I cannot think of anything worse, as Shane and Emma recently said in the podcast, of having to decide all the time what I'm going to eat. Reduce that decision fatigue, get your meals at least planned out, and even better if you can prepare them. That has been number one for me. Now I share some of my meal prep pictures on my Instagram at Mac Lifestyle Fitness. It's MC Lifestyle Fitness. If you want to check out my page there. Again, as I said, I'm a pretty basic cook, but some for members, they like using what is in my recipe cookbook? Sweet potato shepherd's pie, I know is a big one. The tofu, the chicken coated the chicken and almond coated breasts are a big favor as well. So with that, essentially what you do is you get some chicken fillets in one bowl. In a separate bowl, you get some almond coat or ground almonds, and in the third bowl, you get a cracked egg and a small bit of milk there. You dip the chicken fillet into the egg and into the milk, and then you roll the chicken fillet in the ground almonds. So it has this lovely crispy texture. You then place it in the oven for maybe 30, 35 minutes. And it's your own KFC. It's your own crispy chicken there, absolutely gorgeous, but loads of different options. But anyways, the first one is meal prep. Number two, type of food. I've been really more mindful of the type of food that I'm eating. And it's hard nowadays with social because everything is all short form content. And at least the good thing about podcasts is like this, I can expand on it a bit more. So calories in, calories out are absolutely the most important thing for losing fat. If you are not in a calorie deficit, you will not lose fat. However, people take that to extremes, right? And they just think that, okay, calories are all that counts. However, the type of food and the makeup of those calories will have a large impact on how you look and also on how you feel. And there was an interesting study done. So I recently read a book. Well, I read it over a year ago now, 2 years ago. It's called Eat Smarter by Sean Stevenson. And it kind of really opened me up to not only being aware of the calories in foods, but the makeup of those calories. And a research carried out in the book, basically it had two groups, and one group had a meal which was predominantly quote unquote whole foods, so single ingredient foods, and the other group had a meal which was more quote unquote processed foods. And the interesting thing about this study is that the group that had the quote unquote the processed meal, whatever that was made up of, I don't know, have the ins and the outs, but they actually encountered a 50% reduction in calorie burn throughout the rest of the day. In other words, it didn't burn as many calories as the group that had the whole food meal afterwards. And even though both of those meals had the exact same amount of calories, it was the afterburn as well. So it's not just the calories you take in, but it's how much you can absorb and what that's actually doing to our body. So I've just been really mindful of the type of food that I'm eating and focusing predominantly on getting more single ingredient foods. If you walk into a supermarket, you don't need to ask what ingredients are in this apple, what's in this, head of broccoli, what is in this 100% bag of oats or jasmine rice, or this chicken fillet you get from the butchers. It's single ingredient. Whereas Anthem with the package, Anthem with labels on it, you know, um, they technically have ingredients, which means they've been manufactured. Somebody is out there making them, and their job is to get you to come back and get more and more and more. Okay. So I've just been really mindful of the type of food that I'm eating and trying to eat more whole foods. Interestingly, as well, when it comes to type of food, three main macronutrients: protein, carbohydrates, and fats. However, the consumption of those is going to determine and it's going to have an impact on your digestive system and how much of those calories you actually break down. For example, protein, you actually burn more calories eating protein than you do with carbohydrates and fats. This is really interesting. So there's 4 grams of in one gram of protein, there's 4 calories. But approximately 20 to 30% of the calories that you get from protein, you actually burn those while you digest them. So even though there's technically 4 calories per gram of protein, that might actually only look like 3.2 when you take away about 20% of those through digestion. So protein has a higher thermic effect of food than carbohydrates or fats. About 6 to 10% of your calories from carbs are burned as you eat them, as you digest them, and then fats about 0 to 3%. So knowing that to be true, then it is a good idea to have protein at every single meal. Number one, it's going to keep you more fuller for longer, going to help you preserve more muscle. But number two, you actually burn more calories while eating protein compared to carbohydrates and fats. That is why it's very, very difficult to gain a whole lot of weight from just having a whole lot of protein. Like nobody ever really craved any more than 2 or 3 chicken fillets and wanted to eat more and more and more. There's a reason they're difficult to eat a large amount of, because protein, it's more filling, it takes off more room digestively to actually break down, but you will also burn more calories in that digestive process. So just something to keep in mind as well, which is why, yes, calories in, calories out, the very, very base of the pyramid, you will lose body fat if you're in a calorie deficit, but the type of food that you're eating is going to be important. And that's really been something I've been just taking note of. And a little task that I like to sometimes give my clients. So we aim for progress, not perfection. I always try to preach the 80-20. And 80% of your calories from whole foods and 20% from more quote unquote processed foods. And sometimes you can be, flexible and go 70-30, 60-40 the weekends. But I really try push my clients to be 80-20 because I genuinely feel like 80-20, it's that lovely balance where you are eating predominantly whole foods and most you're feeling good. You're eating like an adult. Like it- I'm not going to go into it because it just annoys me. People almost bragging, sharing these videos of eating like Pop Tarts and cinnamon buns, and they're shredded. But that is not the reality. That is their highlight reel. Okay. And for the most part, with the 80-20, it just allows you to eat like an adult. You're an adult if you're listening to this. Freaking eat like one. How did they eat hundreds of years ago? You know, we've come a long way, I feel. But anyways, going back to it, 80-20, eat like an adult. And what that means is 80% of your calories, not 80% of your foods. I've told this story before, but I'll share it again. Imagine you had 10 foods in a given day, and you listed out those 10 foods, and eight of those 10 foods were something like chicken fillet, oats, maybe we'll just get some veggies there, broccoli, um, boiled rice, etc., etc. All single ingredient whole foods. And two of those foods were quote unquote processed foods. So potentially something like a burger and fries from McDonald's. Technically, that is the 80-20 in terms of the type of, or the amount of food that you're eating. But it is not 80-20 in your calorie breakdown, which is why 80% of your calories you want to be coming from whole foods. And a little task I sometimes give my clients just to paint the picture home, because everyone learns differently. Some people they get it straight away, others it needs to be reinforced again and again. Is that I will get them to go through their MyFitnessPal, and let's just say you're at 2,000 odd calories. Ideally, you want 1,600 calories to come from single ingredient foods, which means you still have 400 calories there to include and play around with as you wish. That is where you could include the piece of chocolate. One of her members, she likes to have chocolate every day, and she will have that. Absolutely, go ahead. Others, they like protein bars. Some people, they just like Tato's or crisps or Pringles, whatever. It's just make sure that it's within that 20%. Okay. But type of food, it really does matter. And calories in, calories out will determine what the scale says. But the macronutrients, the protein, the carbs, and the fats will determine how you look. And the micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, that's going to determine how you feel. So if you want to feel good as well as look good, I would be mindful of the type of food you're inputting into your body and just ask yourself, do it for a day now, do it for a day. Or when you log your food, analyze it at the end of the day. Is it single ingredient or has this been processed? Number three, I've really been able to manage my cravings. I don't know about you, listen, but sometimes I can just be a notorious snacker. Like, and a lot of it is just out of boredom, hunger versus habit, and most of it is just out of habit as opposed to hunger. And even though the foods that I would typically snack on would be quote unquote healthy, it could be some fruit, it could be some nuts, it could be some, dark chocolate here and there, some Greek yogurt. The calories still do add up. And now that I'm on prep and I just need to be really mindful of my calories. So I'm currently at 2,200 calories, approximately 230 grams of protein, 220 grams of carbs, and 45 grams of fats. And I haven't changed my calories at all in the past since I even arrived home from Dubai, and I'm down another 6 kilos. So it really just does go to show like type of food does matter. And I am really trying to nail down the type of food and get more predominantly whole foods. But something that I would have struggled with in the past was managing sugar cravings. And I used to default to snacking and even chewing gum to some degree, but depending on the chewing gum that you get, it does have actually calories in it as well. And that could be an extra 100 calories that you're not accounting for. But what I've replaced snacking now with after my meals, I'll always try go for a walk, number one, if it's in the morning, or even after every single meal. And I just find that going for a walk and getting outside, by the time I'm home, that meal that I just had 10, 15 minutes ago, just a short work walk is what I'll usually go for. It's fully digested and I'm feeling full and feeling satisfied. But if I have a work block in between, and let's just say it's like an hour or two before my next meal, what I would have now is just hot drinks. Absolute game changer, particularly on prep. So how I like to do this is in the morning, I'll always have a green tea with my breakfast. I'll have a coffee before the gym. So that's kind of on my way in my walk to the gym. After the gym, then I will make my own homemade hot drink, hot chocolate. Absolutely banging. It is gorgeous. All you need to do is you get cacao powder, 100% cacao powder, small little teaspoon of that. Only has 20 calories. I'll get some liquid stevia, put a couple of drops of that in for flavor, and just pour boiled water into it. Unbelievable. Name me a hot chocolate where you can get away with 20-calorie hot chocolate. Optional, you can add almond milk there, add an extra 10, 20 calories, but you're still getting a big, big cup of hot chocolate inside 40 calories, including the milk. That has been huge for me. And then decaf coffee. The great thing about coffee is it suppresses your appetite. So if I know I'm ever feeling a little peckish, but I'm not gonna, I don't really feel like having a snack just yet, I'll have a decaf coffee or a hot drink that I just mentioned. Such a great way to tie me over. On top of this, as someone who demonized 0-calorie drinks before in the past, turns out Lane Norton, PhD, has done a lot of research on this, and they are okay to consume like everything in moderation. With all of that being said, I wouldn't be slamming down 3 cans of Monster or, 2 or 3 cans of Coke Zero and just really relying on that. There obviously does come a point where it can potentially have an impact on your gut microbiome, but in small doses, I'll just have a can of 7 Up free a day. They're actually fine. All right. So managing cravings in between, I would highly recommend that you swap the snacking with some 0-calorie or very low calorie drink there. That's just going to save you calories and it's also going to keep you fuller for that bit longer because remember, water does take up room in your stomach. And when you drink water, you will naturally feel fuller. So if you are that snacker that after dinner you want something, try go for a walk. Have a hot drink. There's a reason they serve tea after dinner in restaurants, just to allow that meal to digest. Okay? Try go for a walk or have a hot drink, and I promise you, you will reduce your snack calories. Something I'm really big on now with my clients. So what I'll do is when I'm looking at their MyFitnessPal, I can see what they've logged for, would say, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and also their snacks. And what's been helpful for some people is realizing that their snack calories actually add up to more than sometimes their lunch calories. Remember, I had someone and it was Zach actually. He's looking to lose a bit of body fat, like a lot of people, and just get a bit leaner, feel a bit more, feel a bit better in himself. And I was looking at his food diary, and his lunch, it was a pre-prepared meal that he had prepped, and it was like, a lovely looking lunch there, protein, veggies, 400 odd calories. And then I'm looking at his snacks. I'm like, Zach, your snacks are totaling 900 calories here. I would much rather you, and his breakfast was tiny. It was only like a protein yogurt and a banana. So 250 calories for breakfast, 400 for lunch, about 1,000 for dinner, and then 800 for snacks starting out. So I was just saying, Zach, look, I would rather you balance out your calories that bit better. Take some of those snack calories out there and eat a bit freaking more at breakfast. Eat a bit more at lunch, because his challenge was he was under eating throughout the day in the earlier parts and then overeating later on in the evening. But my recommendation by actually eating a bit bigger in the early part of the day, it saved him some calories in the evening time. Now, he was someone who loved the Pringles. So going back to the 80-20% rule, a little hack there for anyone. No one ever had some Pringles and just said, I'll have 5 and leave it there. Or no one ever just opened the full pack of biscuits, had one and put it back. For the most part, if you're like me, you'll probably have 2, 3, or even 4, which can add up to 300 calories easily. But I told Zach to do, so he loved biscuits and he loved Pringles. But with his biscuits and even his rice cakes, dark chocolate rice cakes, like 80 calories per one, I told him, get one of those rice cakes or get a biscuit and have your freaking biscuit, but let's make a meal out of it. If you're going to do it right. Get some Greek yogurt, get your biscuit, break the biscuit up into the Greek yogurt, add some fruit there, add some blueberries, and at least then you're going to feel somewhat satiated and full, so you don't need to reach for seconds. Okay. So if you are someone like Zach, take heed, make a meal out of it. All right. But watch your snack calories. Going back to this, I just look at your MyFitnessPal. How many of your calories are coming from meals where you're actually sitting down and eating, and then how many of those calories are coming from snacking? And a good way to reduce your snack calories is just to add more to your meals so you don't feel the need or urge to. Number four, something that's really helped me. This one I'm going to keep short. Two things actually. So pushing out my morning coffee first thing in the morning, and secondly, having magnesium before bed. Now, caffeine, caffeine basically, I I rarely have it first thing in the morning, but what I did notice is on those mornings where I needed to get an early morning workout in, and it's literally up, rise, and get a workout in. I'd always have a coffee beforehand. By God, I would feel it. I was like, why is this that I never get this mid-afternoon crash, but then at like 2 o'clock, I suddenly feel tired on those days that I get a real early morning workout in. And then Andrew Huberman came out with some really interesting research, which kind of backed up an observation that I would have made before I even seen it. And basically, the longer we are awake, this is in Huberman's words here, the molecule adenosine builds up in your brain and body, and adenosine makes us sleepy. It takes about 90 minutes or so for your adenosine, so the molecule that makes you sleepy, to completely clear out of your system. But the problem is, caffeine actually is an antagonist to adenosine. In other words, it suppresses it, which somewhat surprisingly, you might think that, okay, having a cup of coffee first thing in the morning will wake me up. But then those fatigue levels, which you were essentially blocking, they will start to build again around one, around two, which is why so many people who start the day off with caffeine, they get that mid-afternoon slump. You've simply blocked your adenosine receptors too early in the morning, and you haven't given them enough chance to actually build up and fully replenish. So how do you actually delay the onset of fatigue? If you get that mid-afternoon slump at the office, push out your morning coffee by 90 minutes to 2 hours. Okay. So instead of having coffee first thing in the morning, just drink water. You need water first thing upon waking because you lose water in your sleep. Hydrate, okay? And then have your morning coffee 90 minutes or beyond 90 minutes after you wake. It should lead, and just try it out and see. It should reduce at least that mid-afternoon slump that you might get from over-reliance on coffee or on caffeine. And secondly, just it's a better way, I guess, to start the day. It's nice to have a coffee to look forward to, I feel, after you delay that gratification. So pushing out my morning coffee, that's just something I've noted whenever I had to do an early morning workout. And number two, magnesium before bed. Really, really been helpful with my sleep lately. I've just, you know, yeah, just magnesium. I really would put it down to that has had a big benefit on me. Like I would have had it before, but then I started taking it in powder form. I don't have the exact name of the brand there. And I'll just take a scoop of that before bread, or before, not before bread, before bed. And it has really just helped me, I feel, get into a good deep sleep. So pushing out the morning coffee first thing in the morning and having magnesium before bed. And then finally, the last thing that I've just been doing more frequently is almost keeping a food journal of how foods make me feel. So, for example, berries, I know, again, you learn by doing. I noticed that when I have fruit and berries before bed or in my last evening meal, I don't sleep as well. And then interestingly, I saw Brian Kane post something about avoiding fruit too close to bedtime. Secondly, I noted that sometimes in the evening I would have had oats as my final meal with some dark chocolate melted in. But dark chocolate does in fact have a small bit of caffeine in it. And again, interesting. So now anytime I have my dark chocolate, I will have it earlier on in the day in my bowl of oats mixed up at like, I don't know, 12 or 1 o'clock. Okay, so just two things, two observations that I noted, that dark chocolate before bed and berries before bed. actually impact my sleep. And what I'd recommend you to do is keep a food journal as well. One of our members, John, he sometimes feels a bit bloated. And I think we've identified the trigger as being his protein powder. Because I was just looking at his food over the full week, and it always seemed to be on the days he felt bloated that he had a protein shake. So I just told him, I recommended him to take it out for a day and see. And that way, then you know if that food is causing you to feel bloated or to just not digest your food as well. Only remove one thing at a time. But I would recommend keeping a food journal. I just keep it in my notes on my phone, how foods make me feel. And it has been good to revisit it and come back to it now and again, just so you know what works for you, what makes you feel good. But they are some things that have really helped me diet in my nutrition, get to my leanest and lowest ever body fat percentage, and hopefully they'll help you do the same. So just to recap the meal prep in there, that one, that's the single most important one, without doubt. I did record a episode of the podcast just a few episodes back on my process for planning or cooking a full week's worth of meals. Type of food and just being more mindful of the type of food that I'm eating and really trying to at least, adhere to that 80-20. Number three, managing the craving by taking 0 calorie or low calorie drinks in between. Number four, pushing out my morning coffee and having magnesium before bed. And number five, keeping a food journal so I'm just aware of how foods make me feel. That is all for today's episode. So hopefully you got value, but don't just be a mental masturbator. In other words, don't take in all of this and then do nothing about it. What's one thing that you're going to change? Are you open to trying out potentially prepping your meals just for 1 week? And tell me, is that stubborn fat? Is it as stubborn as you think, or are you just not being consistent enough? Are you going to try have protein at every single meal, or make a conscious effort to include veggies in 2 year meals? Or maybe look at your snack calories and say, okay, I'm going to reduce my snack calories and I'm going to put more of those calories towards my breakfast, my lunch, my dinner, which are actually quite small. Very, very common amongst working professionals. Are you going to try reduce your sugar cravings by having a decaf tea or my homemade hot chocolate, 19 or 20 calorie hot chocolate, game changer? Are you going to try magnesium before bed, potentially pushing out that morning coffee, or just keep a little food journal? Whatever it is, do something. Take some form of action that's going to make you 1% better. Because these 1% improvements, everyone's looking for the diet, everyone's looking for the liposuction, the fast fix. But honestly, if you can just make these small little incremental improvements week by week, I am telling you, how you look, how you feel, your consistency, your confidence, it will change over time. Okay. And just small steps, step by step. So please, if you've listened this far, have a takeaway from it. Try implement something that's going to make you look better, feel better, perform better. And that is all for this week's episode. So if you enjoy the show, please like and subscribe on Apple and on Spotify. I would really appreciate if you left a rating and review. And if you got value from the show as well, please pay the fee. The fee is not monetary in value, just it's value exchange. I'm really, really happy with how this podcast has grown the last year. Um, the first couple of episodes, I'm not going to lie, they were slow, but now we're in the 70s somewhere and it's growing. The word is getting out there and it's from listeners like you. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to me. Hopefully I provided value. And if I did, shoot me a message on Instagram as well. I'm at Mac Lifestyle Fitness on IG. Share it on your stories and tag me. Let me know what you liked about it and I'll repost it. But that is all for this week's episode. Full show notes. I will have all of the topics covered. And if you also want access to a few freebies here, you can also check those out in the show notes. Now, I mentioned the meal prep. I have a free leaner living recipe cookbook. A link to that in the show notes. Just click on it there and that will be into your best inbox as well. You can also join my mailing list. I just send out one weekly newsletter a week if you want to join that. But that Living Lean Recipe Cookbook, I'll post a link for that in my show notes on top of my IG. That is all for this week's episode, Lifestyle Lifters. Hope everyone has a great week and thank you for listening. Until next week, peace out.